Hello and welcome. Today we are going to discuss about the 16th edition of the Conference of Parties on Convention on Biological Diversities, which was recently concluded in the city of Cali, Colombia. As far as this UNCBD is concerned, this was a comparatively low-key event as compared to the UNFCCC COP 29, which is ongoing in the city of Baku, Azerbaijan. So in this video, we are going to look into the various aspects related to COP16, such as the outcomes related to COP16, what were the targets as far as India is concerned, why the city of Cali was chosen as location for COP16. So let us look into these aspects one by one. If we talk about the basics of UNCBD, then this was held in between 21st of October to 1st of November 2024 in the city of Colombia. So there was tussle between two cities, Cali and the capital of Colombia, that is Bogota. But why Cali was chosen over Bogota was, the reason was cultural and ethnic diversity. The richness in cultural and ethnic diversity led to the choice of this city, because this region, Cali lies in the Pacific region, and this region is also known as Sucursal del Cielo. Now, why it is known as Sucursal del Cielo? Because of the cultural richness as well as ethnic and richness in biodiversity as well. Because if we talk about the cultural richness, then around 30% of the community is Afro or indigenous community in this region. Also, around 40% of the area in this region is declared as autonomous territories for ethnic communities. So naturally, there is cultural and ethnic richness in this region. If we talk about the biodiversity richness, then Pacific region has around 200 protected area networks. It has around 11 national natural parks. It has around 1,300 plus faunal species and around 14,000 floral species. So this region, which constitutes around 55,000 plus kilometers of biodiversity, is very rich as far as biodiversity is concerned. So that is the reason why Cali was chosen as the site for UNCBD COP16. Now let us look into the theme of COP16. The theme was peace with nature, and the goal of this UNCBD was very much aligned with the theme. That is, the theme reflects the goal of addressing the global biodiversity crisis, which includes a decline in species and ecosystems. Now when we talk about the decline in species, naturally, the news that come into our mind is either the most threatened species or the species that are on the verge of extinction. So all those species, either floral or faunal, were focused on this UNCBD COP16. And that's why there were various highlights or key highlights related to this UNCBD. Now let us look into all these highlights one by one. If we talk about the major highlights, then there was operationalization of Cali Fund. Then there was resource mobilization, that is funding aspect, that how much fund is required as far as the conservation of biodiversity is concerned. So naturally, if we need to conserve the biodiversity, we need funds. So one aspect is resource mobilization as well. Then there was focus on global action plan on biodiversity and health, which is related to One Health strategy. And there was focus on ecologically or biologically significant marine areas, which is also known as EBSS. EBSAS. So if we talk about the Cali Fund, then Cali Fund was operationalized to channelize all the money that is being there with focus on indigenous communities. So indigenous communities were targeted. And also there was a special focus on the women and youth of this community. Women and youth of this community. So this fund should be channelized into this direction, that is towards the indigenous community. As far as resource mobilization is concerned, so in resource mobilization, we need funds of around $200 billion every year per year by 2030. This was also discussed in the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Fund, or KMGBF. So we need $200 billion per year for the conservation of biodiversity or the preservation of biodiversity. Also, those subsidies which are harming biodiversity, for example, we are providing subsidies on fertilizer, and if that is harming biodiversity, then we need to channelize it, or we need to take it out from there and help it in conservation. So for that, $500 billion per year would be taken out from the subsidies, or would be channelized from the subsidies that are harming the biodiversity. So those subsidies will also be channelized. This is part of resource mobilization only. If we talk about the global action plan on biodiversity and health, then we can take the example of corona here, because the focus is on zoonotic diseases. As far as zoonotic diseases are concerned, then we can say that even the microorganisms, the health of the animals and the health of the humans are interrelated. So we need to focus on one health strategy, and that was discussed in this Global Action Plan on Biodiversity and Health. That is, we need to prioritize the focus on the zoonotic diseases. So this was related to Global Action Plan on Biodiversity and Health. If we talk about the ecologically or biologically significant marine areas, or EBSs, then this focuses on the ocean environment, that we need to create ecologically or biologically significant marine areas such that the biodiversity of the marine or biodiversity of the ocean or marine biodiversity would be conserved, would be preserved. Now let us look into the India's target. India updated its National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan, and its prime focus was on 23 targets. And these 23 targets were discussed in Kunming-Montreal Protocol, KMP or KMGBF, which we already discussed, Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Fund. So there were 23 targets on these goals, that is reducing biodiversity threats, then promoting sustainable use, ecosystem resilience, species recovery, and sustainable management. So all these are related to the human activities or anthropogenic activities, that how humans' efforts should be towards the sustainable use of the resources, should be directed towards the channel which is less harming to the biodiversity. So efforts should be least harming as far as the biodiversity is concerned. So this is all about the goal which India is focusing on. The implementation would be done by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and the key entities which are involved as far as the implementation of this updated NBSAP is concerned are National Biodiversity Authority, NBA, State Biodiversity Boards, Union Territory Biodiversity Councils, and Biodiversity Management Committees. Now, why Union Territory Biodiversity Councils are also included in these key entities? Because we know that Andaman and Nicobar Island and Lakshadweep region are comparatively biodiverse rich region. So that's why these Union Territory Biodiversity Councils are also included as far as the key entities which are implementing this are concerned. If we talk about the funding aspect, as far as India is concerned, then prior to funding, let us look into the targets that what India is focusing on. So first of all is conservation areas. So India is aiming for 30% of areas to be effectively conserved to enhance biodiversity. This is very much aligned to 30 by 30 target, which was there in COP 15. So by 2030, we have to reverse the trend of biodiversity loss, or we have to conserve the 30% of the area which is under the threat of loss of biodiversity. So this is 30 by 30 target. So India is also aiming for 30% of areas to be effectively conserved to enhance biodiversity. As far as invasive species management is concerned, then we are targeting a 50% reduction in introduction and establishment of invasive alien species. Now, mostly invasive alien species come through cross-border trade. So we are also focusing on e-commerce platform. We are also focusing on phytosanitary measures as far as the introduction or reintroduction of this invasive alien species, either floral or faunal, are concerned. So we are also focusing on this invasive species management. Then there is focus on sustainable consumption, that is enabling sustainable consumption and choices and reducing food waste by half. Now, if we talk about the countries like India, which is a developing countries, there is a paradox that the richer communities or the richer societies are wasting food, while on the poorer section, we have the issues of malnutrition and hunger. So if we deal with those paradoxes, then we can move into the zone of sustainable consumption. That is, we can reduce the food wastage by half. As far as pollution reduction is concerned, then we are committing to reduce pollution, halving nutrient loss and pesticide risk. When we talk about the pollution, we not only talk about the air pollution, but we talk about the air pollution, water pollution, soil pollution, nutrient loss, then effect of herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers on the soil. So all these pollutions are interlinked. And if we talk about the UNFCCC, which we will see in the towards the end of this video, then UNFCCC is focusing on climate change, especially focusing on pollution, but UNCBD is also focusing on pollution reduction, not only on land, but also on marine areas. We have to reduce the plastic pollution in marine areas as well. So that is the target of India. As far as benefit sharing is concerned, then benefits sharing, like access to benefit sharing, is one of the prime focus area of UNCBD. So promoting fair and equitable sharing of resources, of benefits from genetic resources, digital sequence information, and associated traditional knowledge. Now we can understand that traditional knowledge is related to the tribal society or the indigenous community. But what is this digital sequence information, this DSI? This term might come into prelims, that what is digital sequence information, or what do you understand by digital sequence information? So digital sequence information is basically genomic sequence data of any species. So if we have information to genomic library, then we can access the information of digital sequence information, and we can relay this information from developed countries to developing countries. So in that way, we will have fair and equitable sharing of benefits from genetic resources from the developed countries to developing countries. Developed countries have technology, developed countries have knowledge. We need to relay this knowledge to developing region so that they can protect the biodiversity. So that is how this DSI is concerned. Also, one prime focus area, which is synthetic biology, was there as far as this COP is concerned. Now, if we look into this name, synthetic biology, then we can understand then there is creation of new organisms by some tweaks and tricks of science and technology, that is genetic modification, genetic editing, genetic engineering. So if we combine those genetic science and create some new organism, then that will come under synthetic biology. Now, it can harm, either benefit the environment, or it can harm the environment. And that is why GEAC, that is Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, which falls under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, is apprehensive about the introduction of BT brinjal, about the introduction of GM mustard. So like this, whether it can harm the environment or whether it will benefit the farmers, there is dilemma as far as this choice of synthetic biology is concerned, or mass production of the products that is emanating from the synthetic biology is concerned. So that's why synthetic biology is also part of UNCBD COP 16 targets. Now let us look into the funding aspect, financing aspect as far as India is concerned. So India expects to spend around rupees 81,664 crores in the period of 2025 to 30 on biodiversity and conservation. So this funding will be gathered from various sources like private players, MNCs, government resources, or other actors, and will be implemented through different channels. Like government will also implement it through different schemes. MNCs will also implement this through different schemes. Then various other actors like intergovernmental organization or non-governmental organizations, these will also implement this schemes, or they will spend these funds to conserve the biodiversity. So this is how our focus on financing is there. As far as community engagement is concerned, then local communities, and particularly the communities in forest dependent areas, that is tribal communities. So tribal communities will also be involved in the conservation efforts of biodiversity. So conservation efforts cannot be segregated from the community that is residing in that area and from the forest dependent areas or forested areas. That's why Cali was important, because we were not only focusing on biodiversity, but we were also focusing on cultural and ethnic diversity. That is, we were focusing on indigenous group of that area. So that's how this COP was concluded on the 2nd of November 2024. Also, presently, UNFCCC COP is going on in Baku, Azerbaijan. This is COP 29. Then there will be one UNCCD, that is United Nations Convention on Combating Desertification, will be there in Riyadh. So this year there will be 3 COP. One is UNFCCC COP, which is a very much highlighted event. One was UNCBD COP, which was comparatively low key event. Then there will be UNCCD COP, which will be conducted in Riyadh. Now, as far as all these COPs are concerned, this focuses on climate change. UNCCD focuses on desertification, whereas CBD focuses on loss of biodiversity. Loss of biodiversity. The prime thing which is there as far as these COPs are concerned, if we refer to one article which was first published in World Economic Forum, then we can see that if we have to address all these problems, then we have to have a combined effort. We cannot only focus on one area. We need to focus on all the areas. So our approach should be like that all these problems will be eliminated to those efforts. For example, if we are focusing on the pollution, then we can arrest climate change as well. We can arrest loss of biodiversity as well. And by addressing all this, we can address the issue of desertification as well. So like this, our effort should be focused on various areas, and especially in these 3 areas, that is climate change, desertification, and loss of biodiversity. So that's why this year's COP was this year's COP 16 was very much important. As far as the basics of UNCBD is concerned, so UNCBD was established under the 1992 Rio Earth Summit. It is held every 2 years. And various organizations like almost 190 member countries of UNCBD take part in this. Intergovernmental organizations take part in this. Non-governmental organizations take part in this. So a lot of actors are involved, and the focus is on fair and equitable sharing of resources and benefit sharing of this the knowledge that is there as far as genetic resources are concerned. So few key terms, if I have to talk about this video or this lecture, this short lecture, then the few key terms related to this are Cali Fund, then DSI, then this community engagement, incorporation of this local communities or indigenous groups. Also, location of Cali is important. Location of Cali is important because Cali has Colombia as a country has opening towards Pacific Ocean as well, and has opening towards Atlantic Ocean as well, if you look into the map of Colombia. But Cali has access towards Pacific Ocean. So that's why the focus is on Pacific region. So that's how all these keywords and UNCBD is important, which is very much in news, although it is low key as compared to UNFCCC, but this is an important area. Thank you.